Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new, my name is Bobby. Guys, this has been swept under the rug. I didn't see it on my radar. A Muslima was praying in Široki Brijeg, which is in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and a Croatian man showed up to stop her from doing so. So now a little bit of background information. I myself am from the Balkan, from northern Macedonia, and I use this terminology loosely. In a nutshell, the Balkan is a mess. Basically, it's a bunch of the same people scattered around with different religions, and they believe that they are very unique and totally different from each other. The majority on the Balkan are Eastern Orthodox, but you have many Catholics as well, especially Croats are Catholics, and then you have a significant Muslim population. The significant Muslim population is predominantly Albanian and Bosnian, but followed by smaller groups from other ethnic Slavs. For example, you do have Macedonian quote-unquote Muslims that are so-called Torbeši, or you have Bulgarian Slavic Muslims that are called Pomak. But you have that all over the place, even in Serbia. And Serbia is usually seen as totally anti-Islam. You have the Sanjak, and there you have Serbian Muslims as well. So Islam is nothing new on the Balkan. The Balkan has been under 500 years of Ottoman rule. And so therefore pretty much every country on the Balkan, even if they are predominantly Christian, still have a minority of Muslims present. I, again, background information here, reverted to Islam. I was born to a family of Orthodox Christians. However, yet again, they are ethnic, and yet again, I use this term very, very loosely, ethnic Northern Macedonians that are born into Islam as well. Anyways, as if that wasn't confusing enough, Bosnia is even more confusing because Bosnia is basically like a mini Balkan microcosm. In Bosnia itself, you have the Bosnians, which are predominantly Muslim, but you do have Christian Bosnians as well. But then you have a big Serbian population within Bosnia called the Republika Srpska, which is basically like an independent state. They have their own police, and those are Orthodox Christian Serbs. And then you have the Croatian population, which is Catholic on top of that, and that is the case in Široki Brijeg. So therefore, this Muslima here was praying in a predominantly Christian area, still nevertheless under Bosnia and Herzegovina. And well, then this happened. Yeah, so very short clip here, filmed from the distance. You cannot hear it. The man has been identified, as I stated, as a Croatian. And I'm just going to dub this for you. Coming from the Balkan, I know exactly what he said. He probably said, Mrš! Yeah, it's a very sad state of affairs on the Balkan, but worldwide, to be totally honest. Because just imagine if this woman was, let's say, a yoga practitioner, and she would do her yoga poses there. Nobody would blink an eye. If she would sit there and she would meditate, maybe she would get some looks on the Balkan, but nobody would interfere. But when they see that you're doing the Muslim prayer, then they're interfering right away. Not knowing, indeed, that Orthodox Christians used to pray like this as well. Catholics used to pray like this as well. Matter of fact, back in the day when I was an Orthodox Christian, I went to Mount Athos, which is a peninsula in Greece that hasn't been changed for over 1,000 years. And down there you only have men living together. Yes, I know that sounds strange. Bobby, why did you go there? But anyways, it's just a bunch of monks, bishops, archbishops. It's kind of similar to the Vatican that the Catholics have in Rome. This is basically the equivalent for the Orthodox Christians. And anyways, go in there, I could still see that Orthodox Christian monks used to prostrate. And matter of fact, you can find it in the Bible as well. You can see that Jesus fell on his face and he prayed to God. He prayed to his God, indicating that Jesus wasn't God. Anyways, point of the story is that this is simply a prayer to God. Nothing more and nothing less. But when you politicize everything, when you look at it from a cultural lens, then, it's those Muslims, and we are the Christians, and we have to stand up for our right. But in reality, what is truly happening here is that there is a woman, modestly clothed, praying to God by herself in what is left of nature, let's say, in that city. And then a guy just interferes with it and stops her from praying to God. I would say that this is an absolute sin, of course. I went through certain Balkan message boards and some people sided with her, but the majority, or at least let's say the vocal majority, they were saying that she should have simply went to a mosque. But yet again, in Široki Brijeg, the majority is Catholic, and therefore you can't expect that there are many mosques around. And if it was prayer time, it is prayer time. It is obligatory for the Muslim, for the Muslima to pray, and we can pray anywhere. Again, people associate this with some sort of power move, some sort of political display. But no, this is not what it is. For us Muslims, our spiritual practice is to pray 5 times per day. That's it. And if we miss that window, then we are sinning. This is how we see it. And therefore, if we cannot reach a mosque, then we can pray anywhere. This is what is recommended to us. This is what is dictated to us, that the world is our prayer mat. We can pray wherever we want because this is God's world, and therefore we can pray to God wherever we want. We don't have to lock ourselves up. We don't have to go to a mosque. We can pray wherever. And yet again, if anybody in that park would have practiced anything else, yoga, tai chi, feng shui, whatever, nobody would blink an eye. It is always about Islam. The question is truly, why here? And I believe that I do have the answer because many so-called patriots, Christian conservatives, they're the most vocal. They're standing up against Islam. First and foremost, we have to establish that they have absolutely no clue about Islam. They don't know what Islam truly is. They're simply attacking the culture, the foreigner. This is what they're attacking. They don't understand the theology, first and foremost. But secondly, and I would say that this is the main reason, they don't even understand their own theology. Most of those neo-nationalists, conservatives, Christians, call them what you will, do not understand their own theology, especially not on the Balkan. I was in that same group back in the day, and when you talk to them, they have no idea about the so-called Holy Trinity. They don't understand that Jesus is supposedly God. They see him as the Son of God, but they don't even understand what that is supposed to mean. So therefore, they are simply identified as Christians culturally. I remember back in the day speaking to certain Serbian friends of mine, and that guy especially, one guy comes to mind, he was an atheist. He didn't even believe in God whatsoever. But his hatred towards Albanians was so big that he said that he's going to tattoo himself with crosses, huge crosses, to piss off the Albanians. This was really the motivation behind it. Not because he believed in the sacrifice on the cross. Not because he believed that Jesus was God. Not that he even believed that there is a God in the first place, but his hatred made him get those tattoos. And he got those tattoos. He really got them, even though he's not a believer whatsoever. This is really a cultural clash and nothing more and nothing less. But in the end, and this is the most hysterical fact on the Balkan, ethnically, if you look into the DNA of those populations, you will see that they are pretty much identical. A Bosnian is not different from a Serb, and a Serb is not different from a Croatian. Of course, if you go up to the north of Croatia and you're approaching the west further, then you see a slightly different admixture than if you go further down south. That is just normal, but that happens in every single country. That happens in Germany, that happens in France, in bigger countries. So such minimal changes in DNA do not define an ethnicity. But this is what they use to split apart the Balkan, and they use it to this very day. This is why it's called Balkanization. It is very shameful, to be totally honest. I wish that the Balkan could be more like Russia, ultimately, where religions do coexist and they do see themselves as one people. Anyways, guys, this is it for today's video. If you liked it, leave it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and check out the links in the description box below to further support my work. Thank you very much for that. And as always, may God bless you all. Much love and peace.
يا نفس إن لم تظفري لا تجزعي